Today's question comes from Shayna. Shayna writes, I have been with my barrel horse for almost 5 years now. He is very strong and really fast. He runs awesome indoors and at practices. At rodeos, he runs 3 or 4 steps past the first barrel. I sit and say whoa every time and he acts like he will sit but goes past. I need him for high school rodeo and college, but I'm starting to get frustrated and it's starting to affect my confidence. I would like any ideas or tips for help. Thanks so much for writing with your question. It's not uncommon for barrel racers to have trouble with that pesky first barrel, especially when transitioning to an outdoor pen. In this video, I'm going to explain the most common reasons why horses go by a barrel and in each case, what to do about it. Now, you may experience your horse going by the first barrel more so in outdoor arenas, but consider that the different competition environments is a circumstance that makes an already existing problem that is actually still there even when you're running indoors more obvious. Going by the barrel is the symptom of a problem. It is the effect of a cause. So keep in mind, for example, that even if you can manage to turn the first barrel now and then with the help of a different bit, for example, it won't necessarily be a complete solution if your horse isn't wanting to turn because his hocks are sore. So we have to put our detective hats on and look at this issue from several angles. The actual cause of this problem is not always easy to identify, especially if you usually run indoors where there's a more enclosed feel to the arena and the barrels are closer to the walls, which help your horse make the turn. So we have to go deep under the surface to find a lasting solution. The truth is, we want our horses so solid and consistent that we could send them from the back 40 and have them crank each turn, even in a wide open area or any other kind of extreme situation. Horses that have consistent, correct form and function that holds up in all kinds of environments will always outperform horses that seem to need to have the stars to be aligned just right to do well. The good news is that although our horses may always do slightly better in some arenas than others, we do have the power to develop our horses in a way that establishes consistency, responsibility, and responsiveness when we need it, no matter what. Now, the first reason for going by a barrel is a physical problem. I find myself saying this often, but when I look back on the times that I had the most trouble with going by the first barrel, I really believe, knowing what I know now, that looking back, my horse was sore. Cranking the turn caused him pain, and he was trying to delay or avoid that pain. Now, this was not a horse that was lame. He was not a horse that had been riding or competing on extremely hard. He wasn't an older horse, and he was supported with quality joint supplements. So, though I was really doing all the right things, or I thought I was, I didn't think he could possibly be uncomfortable. The truth is that even horses that aren't making a ton of runs can get sore. Even young horses can get sore. Even horses that aren't lame can be sore. Even horses that are very fit, very well taken care of, with all the right body work and supplements can be sore. So before you go on, schedule a thorough exam with an equine performance vet to make sure there's no underlying physical issues. Secondly, if you really think about it, there's a different energy to an outdoor rodeo as compared to an indoor barrel race or even a practice. Even when we think we are riding the same as usual, the more energetic environments can actually cause us to ride a little differently than we usually do. So really study your videos in slow motion, frame by frame. Compare them to your good runs in practice and ask yourself, are you really sitting down deep before the barrel to help your horse collect and position for the turn? You may need to sit astride sooner and use a little more contact with the rein to help prepare your horse. Even though we want our horses to be able to handle all kinds of circumstances, it's not realistic to expect them to do so perfectly when those circumstances are constantly changing, especially when they're traveling at high speed. So do realize that it's very likely that you will need to adjust how you ride your horse based on his needs and the circumstances. Speaking of changing circumstances, we know that going by barrels is more of a problem in outdoor arenas simply because being outside versus inside frees the horse up. Having more real estate between the barrel and the arena walls offers less help for horses for nailing those turns as well. When you have a big outdoor rodeo coming up, spend a few sessions preparing him for that situation by sharpening up his responsiveness at speed, by performing some exercises that help him transfer more weight to the hindquarters, and even spend more time shortening him by traveling in plenty of small circles to counterbalance the lengthening environment you'll be facing. It may take some trial and error to determine how much of this your horse needs, but when we make adjustments to prepare our horses, it helps create confidence, building consistently correct runs in competition. Another part to this is that you want to really look close at your overall riding in general. How you balance your weight in the saddle, whether forward and back or side to side, or even how you position your shoulders, where you look, and your hand position can make or break your first barrel. Keep in mind that you want to be generally centered and balanced, looking where you want to go with light guiding contact, riding with your seat, and subtly with your hands and a bent elbow. If you really study photos and video, you'll see that horses often mirror the position of the rider. So ride your horse the way you want him to go, which is with his weight transferred to the hindquarters with a little bend, not stiff, straight, and front-endy, which is not an athletic position and usually contributes to going by barrels. Speaking of quality form resulting in quality function, it's a good idea to also really take a close look at how your horse travels in general and spend some time making sure you have your horse's responsiveness and quality movement developed to a high enough level that it will hold up at high speeds. For most horses, running nearly full speed and turning a barrel isn't physically something that is super easy for them to do, which is why we have to spend time very carefully developing them and complementing their natural athletic ability. Your horse must make a full body transition. He needs to rate and shape, meaning his weight must transfer backward from the more forward gallop, and he must have flexion in his body, all while keeping forward momentum. You also need to have soft responsiveness so that your horse is willing to move his body and adjust it in an instant based on what you ask. It's easier said than done. If you're missing any of these pieces or they just aren't refined enough to hold up at speed, evidence of this is sure to show up in a run. Now, many barrel racers will stop and back a horse at the barrel that has a habit of going by to emphasize that rearward shift in weight. And although this can be helpful, it's important to realize that with an understanding of what quality movement is and how to develop it, that drawing the rear end in the ground doesn't necessarily have to be something you do at any point in the training process. And if you feel it's necessary to do so, it's usually because something was or is missing somewhere down the line in that horse's development. There are plenty of articles here on barrelracingtips.com on the subject of quality movement. So if you think you need to brush up in that area, feel free to use the search bar in the upper right corner. In addition, it's very critical that you pay close attention to the exact footfall pattern of your horse as you approach the first barrel. And let's not forget how crucial it is to set your horse up for success in the alley. I'll include links to past Q&As that address these subjects in even more depth. For now, let's summarize the key points I've covered. When I look back at the time, I personally struggled with this issue the most. Knowing what I know now, I believe my horse, number one, had a physical issue. Number two, I didn't realize it at the time, but I needed to make adjustments to how I rode in a run for my horse to perform his best. And number three, my horse needed more refinement in the quality of his movement. He was very highly developed, but he wasn't what I call broke at speed. If you get stuck trying to change your riding habits in a run, or even want to bridge that gap between perfect slow work and fast work, I'll also include links to other helpful resources on those subjects as well, because as you can see, this is all connected. I hope these ideas have been helpful, and remember that going by the barrel is the symptom of a problem. To create a lasting solution, you can't just relieve the symptom, you must fix the problem at its source. Now, I'd love to hear your experiences with going by barrels. Are you currently frustrated by this common problem, or have you resolved this issue and have some valuable feedback to offer? Please share in the comments below. And until next time, remember, applied knowledge is power.